Midnight Moon. Written by Suzana Thompson. Narrated by Sarah Sampino. Chapter 20. Damien made a phone call when we returned to the residential neighborhoods. He told someone that we were almost there. "Sorry," he apologized to me after getting off the phone. "I promised them a ride around the block." The carriage halted beside the curb, and Damien's twin sisters came running out of their house. "Careful," he yelled. "The sidewalk's slippery." They slowed down to walk across the sidewalk as Damien got out of the carriage. The driver was already waiting to help the girls up into it, and their brother let them sit down first before climbing back inside. His sisters immediately complained about not wanting to ride facing backwards, so we switched seats with them. I left them the blanket, but they merely sat on it, unconcerned with warmth in their eager excitement over riding in a horse-drawn carriage. "You've met them before, but these are my sisters, Ashley and Allison." I smiled at them as Damien introduced us. "Hi." "This is my girlfriend, Clarissa." I glanced quickly at him but didn't contradict him. "Hi," his sisters replied as the carriage began to move. They promptly lost interest in me as we continued down the street. I wanted to talk to Damien about introducing me as his girlfriend, but I didn't feel comfortable bringing it up in front of his sisters. He'd certainly proven that Taylor had been wrong in her assumption that he thought we were just friends. His insistence about calling me his girlfriend, along with that romantic kiss, proved that he wanted more than friendship. His willingness to listen to me and take things slow showed that he cared about me. The lovely surprise he'd planned for my birthday tonight indicated that he would be a wonderful boyfriend. It was really everything that I could ask for, and I decided that giving him a second chance had been the right choice. The girls wanted to take pictures beside the horses, and Damien obliged them. I watched the three of them with a smile on my face. The sibling affection was apparent despite the sass his sisters gave them. "I'll take one of all of you," I offered. Ashley and Allison made a show of grumbling, but they posed with their brother. He stood in the middle with his arms around them, and they all smiled. We were under a streetlight, and the evening was also brightened by the Christmas lights decorating the nearby houses. It helped illuminate the pictures we were taking, so they came out good. "You need to be in the picture too," Damien said. "Then who's gonna take the picture?" I laughed. "We'll take turns," one of the twins suggested. "I'll take a picture of you with Allison, and then she'll take one of you with me." That was Ashley speaking, I mentally noted. They were wearing similar coats, so I was having trouble telling them apart. "I want all of us together," Damien insisted. "I'll do it," the driver offered. Damien handed the phone to him, and the twins surprised me by scrambling to pose on either side of me, leaving Damien to stand beside one of them. I smiled, imagining a sisterly bond between us. It was a nice thought, but I couldn't really think that far into the future. We thanked the driver, and he wished us a Merry Christmas before he left. The twins stood watching the horses trot away, while Damien and I began walking toward the house. "They like you," he said. "I like them too," I replied. "But I feel like I'm intruding on your family time." "You're not," he assured me. "And they know they got that ride because of you." "I can't believe you did that for me," I exclaimed. "Thank you so much." He smiled in pleasure at my enthusiasm. His sisters were still excited as they came up behind us, and I stepped aside to let them pass. Damien ushered me into the house behind them, but I felt nervous about being here now. We didn't linger long with his family after he introduced me to them, again, as his girlfriend. Damien led me down into the basement, where a table was set for two. He lit a candle before pulling out my chair for me. Then he lit an assortment of candles around the room and turned off the electric lights. The effect was very romantic, especially since he was wearing a suit. The only thing that spoiled it was me in my jeans and colorful Christmas sweater. "I feel underdressed," I declared. "We don't match." "I have no problem with you being undressed," he told me. "But that's not the impression you want to make on my mom." Underdressed, I stressed while I rolled my eyes. Under your dress, he deliberately misspoke. That sounds like somewhere I want to be. His green eyes gleamed with flirty mischief. I'm not wearing a dress, I teased in a playful tone. Anything else you're not wearing? Damien asked suggestively. Wouldn't you like to know? I taunted, but I dropped my gaze as my face heated up. His implied reference to my underwear suddenly made me very aware of them. I was remembering his fascination with seeing my panties, and now the flush of my skin wasn't only due to embarrassment. I made you a feast, Damien said, but the playfulness in his tone now sounded forced. Well, my mom and my aunts made it, but I brought it down here, and there's cake. That was supposed to be a surprise, so pretend you didn't know. Sorry I didn't get you a present, but I'm kind of broke now. His conversation now didn't sound natural, but rather reminded me of how people speak when they're trying to cover up their nervousness. He was also standing in a far corner of the room as he spoke. Are you kidding? I exclaimed. You gave me flowers, again, and you paid for a horse and carriage ride on Christmas. How much did that cost? Don't worry about it, he told me. It's your birthday, and I wanted it to be special. It is, I replied sincerely. Nobody has ever put this much effort into my birthday before. He now walked back to the table and started removing the foil from the plates of food. You're special to me, Clarissa. I wanted you to know that. Emotion swelled within me, similar to what I'd felt after he kissed me during our carriage ride. I'm glad we got back together. His smile warmed my heart. Me too, he agreed softly. He gestured for me to help myself to some food, and then began to pile his plate. I smiled at his familiar appetite. The atmosphere between us was now of warm contentment in the lovely glow of the candlelight. Once again it seemed like we were in our own private world. We barely had a chance to finish dinner before Ashley and Allison came downstairs, singing happy birthday. Their dad was carrying a cake with 2 number candles on it, a 1 and an 8. Damien cleared a spot on the table for him to set down the cake. Then he lit the candles. Make a wish, the twins chorused excitedly. I made it quickly, hastily in my mind, under pressure of everyone's attention on me. All of us safe. It was a response to all the fear and danger that was behind us now, hopefully. Damien removed the candles after I blew them out and began cutting the cake. He gave the first piece to me before cutting pieces for his sisters, his dad, and himself. Ashley and Allison tried to sit with us, but their dad insisted on them going back upstairs with him. Happy birthday, Clarissa, he told me. Thank you, I answered. Happy birthday, the twins said again, before reluctantly following their dad. Damien and I were left alone to eat our cake by candlelight. He finished before me and stood up to get another piece, but paused when he glanced at me. I felt the spark from his gaze and swallowed thickly. He stepped around the table and stopped in front of me. You've got frosting on your mouth. My heartbeat skittered as he leaned down and flicked his tongue out to lick the frosting off my lip. The heat that I had felt earlier now inflamed my body when Damien's breath moved over my sensitized lip, still tingling from the contact with his tongue. He dropped to his knees before sucking hungrily on that lip. The erotic sensation made me gasp in pleasure, and he seemed to draw in my breath as he covered my mouth with his while deepening the kiss. It was very different from the gentle, romantic kiss we had shared in the carriage, and it was quickly escalating out of control. His hands moved under my sweater and set aflame already fevered skin with his searing touch. I stifled a moan as he freed my mouth to trail sensual kisses down my neck. Your family, I protested. Your sisters. Damien groaned against my neck and pulled back. Upstairs, he rasped. Now, he ground out warningly. I quickly stood up and hurried up the stairs. When I realized that Damien hadn't come with me, I decided to hide in the bathroom until I calmed down. My face looked flushed, and I worried guiltily that anybody could tell I'd just been making out with Damien in the basement. The concern of being just friends had been obliterated with the intensity of a wildfire. Our platonic dates hadn't prepared me for this sudden flare of passion. When I cautiously opened the bathroom door, I found Damien standing there waiting for me. "I'll drive you home," he said in a normal, controlled voice. I was quiet as we walked outside to his car. He'd left it parked on the street, apparently thinking ahead to not getting blocked in by his relatives' cars in the driveway. He broke the silence after he pulled away from the curb. "I'm sorry I snapped at you, but I needed you to go upstairs so I could calm down." "It's okay. I needed to calm down too," I admitted. "I know," he said. "Your scent was driving me crazy. It still kind of is, but I can handle it until I get you home." "But you can smell me all the time," I reminded him in bewilderment. Your other scent," he told me in an extremely uncomfortable tone. It took a moment before I comprehended what he meant. I'd been angry with him when he'd told me he could smell my arousal, thinking it was some obnoxious pickup line. Now I was completely mortified by the realization that he was telling the truth. Unbidden, Kristen's voice replayed in my mind. "He's an animal." He was, in some ways. He had the keen senses of an animal, the superior hearing, and smell. I stared out the window, unable to look at him in my shame. "I just need to stay away from you for a few days before the full moon," he said with false lightness. "Then it will be no problem." Left unspoken was the fact that it was definitely a problem right now. I could sense the tension in him, how tightly he was holding on to his self-control. He reinforced that assessment by jumping out of the car as soon as we arrived at my house and hustling me toward the front door as politely as he could. "Good night," he said, sounding relieved to take his leave of me. "Good night," I managed to say, before escaping into the chaotic merriment of my relatives. For once, I was glad that they didn't remember to pay special attention to me on my birthday. I didn't want anyone to notice my mental turmoil. I'd just had the best and worst date of my life in the span of one evening, and I didn't know where Damien and I would go from here.